Good morning. Hope everybody's doing great this morning. I wanted to talk a little bit. You may have heard that today at 1 o'clock, the Fed is meeting to discuss a rate decrease on the on prime rate, the rate that banks use when they loan money to each other. So in September, there was a 50 base point reduction. Today's is expected to be 25, and in December, January, and a couple more next year, they're expected to drop more. And the prediction would be by June of next year, the base rate would be around 4.25 to 4.5. So next question that you hear is, well, how will that affect mortgage rates? And you're going to get that question from buyers. What's the rate? And of course, rate fluctuates sometimes multiple times in one day. Typically, if the base rate drops, then you're going to see a little bit of a drop in the mortgage rate. But after the huge drop in September, we've actually seen increases in mortgage rates to where it's back up close to 7% at this time. So, will it drop? It should, but don't know for sure. Banks, credit cards, lenders, they make their money on interest rates. So, some of them may be hesitant to drop until it lowers more. So, we'll just have to see how that affects. Also, there will be a question of how will the new president affect the rates. And I don't know, you may have heard there was a election this week. We will have a new president in January. And his last time in office, interest rates were at an incredibly historically low point. That was not because of him. The president, politics do not have a factor in the rate. The Fed is an independent group. They do not look at politics to set policy and the interest rate. They look at data, historical data, inflation, job market, gross domestic product, all kinds of different things factor in to how they set the borrowing money, the prime rate. Now, does the president's policies, can they affect that? Well, of course. President Trump has said he will immediately put tariffs in place. The tariffs will have an initial inflation factor to America, but it typically, depending on how they go, how they are implemented, shouldn't be a continuous inflation. It's just an initial hit and then level out. So that can affect it. So people will say the rate's going to go down, up. We don't know for sure. We'll just have to see what happens. Whatever happens, it's not going to happen for a few months. In January, if January 21st, if the president decides to implement tariffs, you're not going to see an effect January 21st or 22nd. It's going to take a little bit for that to affect. So at that point, by the time of middle February, the housing market is starting to get stronger anyway. We're in a slow time, typically in the winter. It is slower. People aren't buying houses as often. Market is slower, but it will pick up into February, 1st of March. And that's also when we start to see the housing pricing go back up a little bit. Right now, we are still seeing a lot of price decreases. We're seeing more houses come on the market, but we're also seeing a whole lot of price decreases. So need to make sure that we're doing our CMAs, that we're doing our studies, and make sure that we are pricing things properly. We're moving into a typical market. We're moving away from a 2021 market. So don't panic. Condition the seller or advise the seller that it may be 45 days, 60 days before we get offers on the houses. That is a normal market. That's not unusual. The last 4 years are the ones that have been unusual, and we're getting multiple offers in the same day. Now, I'm not saying that won't happen. It can still happen. It's just not a typical market. A typical market is we're going to have a lengthy time on the market, and so just be prepared for that. So I wanted to talk about that part. The where the economy is going, we don't really know. We'll have to see what happens there. Always remember that presidents tend to, or politics, sometimes get too much credit when things are good and too much blame when things are bad. Policy that's put into effect today is going to take a while to see a change. It's just the way the process works. In January, when the new president takes over, the Republicans will control the Senate. We don't know yet if they're going to control the House or not. Even if they do control both chambers, it's still going to take time to get things implemented, and it's still going to take time to get them passed and get them going and seeing effect. Now, the difference is, if I'm not mistaken, from day one, he can implement the tariffs. He does not need congressional approval for that, I believe. So those will go into effect quickly, but it's going to be a while before, it's not going to be 6 months, but it'll be a few weeks or a month or two before you see any effect of that on your spending. So anyway, if you have any questions, let me know. I just want to get on and talk a little bit about these things, where we see we're going. Oh, new housing starts and new housing. The best interest rates right now are new construction. Now, some of those are buy downs, and some of those buy downs are not permanent. So you need to have that conversation with the builder and the builder's lender when you're working with the buyer. Are those buy downs permanent, or are they going to go back up? If they're going back up, the buyer needs to be prepared for, they may go up, they may not, but they just need to understand how the buy down works, if that's the way it's going to work for that builder. Each builder has some different policies, plans, rates, depending on who their lending is with. So anyway, have a great day.